real estate cookies. It's basically, I called it cookies because I wanted to put bite-sized real estate chunks out there for everyone to keep the cookies on the bottom shelf, so to speak, so everyone can understand it and use it. There's a lot of real estate trainings out there that just are impractical, so to speak. And so I really wanted to make it practical. And I've had experience doing it and teaching and had some success with it and really enjoy it. So I just wanted to be able to share it again. And it's weird. Recently, I've just gotten a lot of phone calls and texts saying, hey, what are you talking about? You bought a resort. And what are you doing with this development? How'd you do this? And so if a lot of you guys know, I've known Crystal and I for a long time, or somebody we're just meeting, but we're nothing special. It's just a matter we've been doing it for quite a while, and I wanted to be able to share it. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. And hopefully we're going to make this a monthly kind of a masterclass type thing on it where we'll go deeper. But tonight I want to just set the parameters and also the thinking that goes around it. So I'm going to share my screen a little bit, and I'll share this content with you guys as well. After the call, send it out there so you can follow along. But basically tonight, Crystal and I was talking to her today, Crystal, my wife, we've been doing real estate now for about 25 years investing. And we've done around a little conservatively about 30 million in commercial and residential loans. So to some people, that's not a lot, honestly. I mean, get a developer that's doing a big development, they'll say, well, I did that last week. Like, that's nothing. And to a lot of people, it might be a lot. For my wife and I, our main goal years ago was that we wanted to create cash flow so we could have a lifestyle, basically a lifestyle of investment. I didn't get no fancy degree. I got a Bible degree. I wasn't going to make a lot of money with my degree, and really we weren't going to be able to stay home, have one parent stay home with the kids. That's really was our goal. If we didn't learn how to make some money on the side. And so, I know most of you, I know the goals. We have, good earners on it. You earn a good paycheck, and you probably have some retirement put away. You own your own home. But there's this sense of like, I got to do something more. Or like Jaden, who I didn't get told a chance to meet, but I know your dad well, is in college and is thinking about what to do. And I got a son in college too, and they're doing the exact same thing, like figuring out what to do. And my son, who's a junior, is determined not to work a normal job, but to do investments. And I told him that it is a job. It's a major job, but it's more fun if you can control it. So the reason I wanted to start with commercial real estate is because when you look at the whole landscape of investing, the numbers don't add up when you think about making cash flow by buying real estate if you don't understand commercial real estate. What I mean by that is that a lot of times I talk to people who say, well, I want to buy 5 or 6 rental properties, and then I want to get cash flow from each of those, and I want to quit my job, and I want to be able to do this full time. I'm like, I love the goal, I love the mindset, but the math doesn't add up, okay? Because the way residential loans work and the way the lending works, if you're thinking about buying single families or duplexes and the way you're going to go about it, the math doesn't add up for it. And that's what we hit. We read a couple of books, we were all excited about it. And I started doing the math. I'm like, we're never going to be able to live off this. I'm making a couple $100 or maybe a $500 per rental unit. How's this going to work? And then I can't get loans to go forward. And so none of it was going to work. And then I took a class on commercial real estate, and a couple nuggets clicked in my brain, went out and researched it, and then everything changed. And what I want to share with you tonight is what changed. I want to share with you the nuggets that changed my mindset, which opened up everything. Okay. And if I share numbers with you, it's not to brag or anything. It's just saying, like, look, if I can do it, it's completely possible. All right. And my wife is much smarter than I am. And those you know her know that's true. But we do it together, and we have different strengths and qualities. This is my strength. Hers is more in operations. Mine's in setting deals and understanding it. And so that's what I love to do. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share my screen here. Let's see here how this way. Good.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm not a PowerPoint heavy person by any means, and this will not be PowerPoint heavy, but there's a few things on here that are not going to make sense if I don't. And again, I'm not here to talk the whole time. If you have questions, if something doesn't make sense, just stop and ask the question. You're not going to throw me off. It's not being rude. Just ask the question, okay? So a couple little stats just to start off with, all right? So I pulled this up today, Pew Research Center. Business equity or rental properties or other real estate is less commonplace. For instance, only about 1 in 10 or fewer households owned a rental property or other real estate in 2021, no matter what ethnicity or race. So 1 in 10, fewer than 1 in 10 owned a rental property or other real estate. All right. So a lot of people don't do this. All right. And ownership of commercial real estate is among the rare U.S. households. And so most of it is concentrated in investment firms, REITs. But then I love this last line. Wealthy, experienced investors, as if that is some elite class that you can't break into. It's not true. You can. So owning rental property outside your main household is rare to begin with. But then owning investment property and commercial property is even rarer. So, and I really believe it's not because it's so unobtainable. It's because people think it's unattainable, but they don't understand the nuggets I'm about to share that help it become obtainable. You just have to change your thinking about it. All right. So here are the nuggets. And again, I'll send you this PowerPoint. You don't feel like you have to write all this down. But this is the nuggets that changed everything. Okay. I'm going to explain the residential side versus the commercial side, and you'll begin to understand why everything changes when you understand this. Okay. So for the majority of people, the largest investment they have, the most equity they have, the most retirement funds they have is tied up in their personal home. Okay. And a lot of people know how to go get a residential loan. And so that process shapes how they think commercial loans work. Okay. So when you go get a residential loan, a loan on like your personal residence, it's easier to get and qualify because you're living in the home, and the banks look at it as a good bet because all your bills come, you're going to pay your house first and the other ones last. So like, this is a good bet. And we want the economy to flourish. We're going to allow people to have homes that they live in and borrow on them. So they lower the down payment. So instead of being 20% down, they go down as low as 3%. Okay. And so you can get into a home relatively easily in certain parts of the country, at least as far as the lending goes. And what qualifies you for it is your income. So if you take a look at this one here, your residential home. So let's say you bring home, you and your wife, or just you personally bring home $8,000 a month. Okay. The bank's maximum DTI, or debt to income ratio, is going to be like 45%. So if you bring home $8,000 a month, they're going to say you can borrow up to about $3,600. That's how much your mortgage can cost you. Oh, but you have credit card debt, maybe a car payment. Well, you got to deduct that off of it. So your maximum loan mortgage payment is about $2,700 all in. That means your maximum home price is between $375 and $425. And that's typically how we look at doing your owner occupied house that you're going to move into. You're going to do the math. You're going to figure out what you qualify for. They're going to look at your income, deduct your debt, and that's what you're going to get to, because they're expecting you to pay it back. Okay. They're expecting you to pay it back. So your income, your personal income qualifies you for the note. Is everyone with me so far? I got to pull this down because I can't see everybody. Hold on. Everyone with Matt, you good with this? Jaden?
All good.
No questions.
All good.
They teach you this in college, Jaden? No. All right. So you have your loan. You're going to qualify for it. All right. So that's on the residential side. Now, what makes everything switch though is on a commercial loan, the property's income qualifies, not yours. So when you get to a commercial loan, they're expecting the property to pay back the note primarily, not you. Now, I'll probably get comments later on about that's not totally true. They do look at you. Believe me, they will. If you're trying to get a commercial loan, they're going to do everything short of a blood test for you to get the loan. I get it. They will. Okay. You have to be a good bet, good credit, whatever. But they're not expecting your income to qualify you for it. So, for example, Crystal and I just purchased the resort in Florida. Okay. It was $8 million. All right. I'm just doing this for an example because it helps set the stage. If I went and tried to qualify for that under the residential side, where I had to have enough income to make that payment and qualify for it, I wouldn't have qualified. There's no way we could have got it. But we weren't the ones qualifying. The resort was qualifying. They looked at all the historicals, all the income, all the expenses, and they have a ratio. So the same way you have a ratio, and this is what we'll do when we go to other classes. We can just dive into this way better. But typically, on the right side, this is the formula for it. And we don't have to go into it all right now. But basically, they're looking at they're going to take the income of the property and then minus all the expenses to get what's called the NOI, or the net operating income. That's how much money is left over to pay the debt at the end of the day. They're going to look at that and they're going to run a formula to see if that property qualifies for the loan. So, for example, in here, the NOI is $150,000, and then they'll say, well, because of that, the debt service ratio has to be a 1.25. Basically, there has to be $1.25 for every dollar you're paying back. Okay, $1 for every mortgage is required, so it has to earn $1.20 or $1.25 to make so it passes. So if your annual loan payments are $120,000 and the NOI is $150,000, well, now you're going to pass because there's enough there to pay it back. Okay, I'm going to pause there for a second and pull this down. Any questions on that? Am I going too quick on how that works? We can get more into it later too with details, but the main idea is that they're going to look at the income of the property. That's going to qualify for the note, not you yourself, not your income is going to qualify for it. Okay. And they have a ratio to do it at. So for example, oh boy, here comes someone home. For example, if a property's NOI, look at the bottom here, is $150,000, what do you think the market value here in the Midwest? What kind of property could you buy if the NOI was $150,000? You could purchase a loan, a building up to $1.6 million. So you couldn't go out with potentially your income right now and go qualify for a $1.6 million home, but you can go get a rental property. You can go get a commercial property that's $1.6 million, and you have good income. So let's say you are the person on the left here with the income of $8,000 a month, good credit, you've taken care of your stuff. You realize you're not going out to look for properties in that same 375 ratio because that's what you qualify for. You can go much bigger because the income of the property is what's qualifying for it. Okay. And what that does is that should unlock your brain to look like, oh, I have to stop thinking and looking at properties that are so small. And because that, they'll have small margins because you think that's what you can qualify for. You can qualify for much more if you get a property that produces income. All right. So here's the principle. If you watch my YouTube channel, the first one I talk about is the principle of good deals attract money. Okay, that's the first rule you got to understand. Good deals attract money. And so you have to stop trying to find properties you think you can afford yourself. You have to go find deals. If you find a deal meaning a property that makes money, it will attract money. Good deals attract money. And when I stopped trying to find properties that I thought I could afford, I just started going looking for deals, and I understood what a deal was, then I was able to attract money to fund the deal. Okay. But that's kind of the first video there. But when you look here, residential loans, your personal income qualifies you for it. On the commercial side, the property's income qualifies you for it, not yours. Okay. Second principle is there's limits on how many properties you can finance. All right. Literally right now, the law is with conventional loans, you can only have up to 10 finance properties. So if it's an FHA loan, you can only have one at a time. VA sets no limits. It remains on some other rules out there, but you're not going to get multiple VA loans. And USD loans is one at a time as well. So when I say a conventional loan, this is going to your mortgage broker, going to your local bank, getting a residential loan to finance your personal house that you're going to live in. And then maybe you can afford a vacation property. So you buy a second home. Well, who's paying for that? Your income pays for it. So you got to have a pretty substantial income to cover both of those. Then you say, well, I'm going to get a rental property. Well, then you try to get the third one. Most people get about 3 loans, and that's about the max you can get doing it the conventional route. That's why I said in the beginning, the idea people get of like, I'm going to get 10 houses doesn't add up because you can't really get that many loans. I've yet to see anyone qualify for that many houses. Okay, so they'll get their dad to buy one, their mom to buy one. It gets all complicated, but that doesn't how we have to make it work. Okay, we want there's a better way to do this, and in residential loans, there's limits on how many properties you can finance. On the commercial side, there's no limit on the number of properties you can finance. Okay, there's none. I mean, it's like sky's the limit. And what is really crazy about it is that on the residential side, the more properties you take on, the more debt you take on, the more risky you become. And this is, I'm going to pull this down for a second so I can see everybody. This is what really blew my mind. On the residential side, every time you go get another mortgage, you try to get one, they're like, oh, you already have a house and you already have a rental property. That's a lot of debt. I don't know. It's kind of scary because they're expecting you to pay it back. All right. They're expecting you to pay it back. So they get, as you get more debt, they get more scared. All right. Because you're the main person paying them back. On the commercial side, the hardest loan you're ever going to get is your first commercial loan because they're going to scrutinize you and you're untested and all this other stuff. But on the commercial side, the more debt you get, it's considered experience. And so on the residential side, the more debt you get, the more risky you are. On the commercial side, the more debt you get, the more experienced you are. And so when a bank looks at your balance sheet or your personal financial statement, and they see 3 commercial loans that you've had for 3 years and they're seasoned and you've been managing the property and paying everything back, they're like, this is a good bet. And he'll go to his loan officer and be like, hey, look at this. He's got 3-4 loans. He's paid them back all on time. This is a good bet. He'd be a good guy to get. And they'll negotiate to get you. Where on the residential side, they're putting your number into a computer and it gets all confusing and they spit up because you're like, you're a high risk. You have too much debt. So residential, a lot of debt is risky. Commercial side, a lot of debt is considered experienced. And it's a good thing. All right. It's momentum. It really is momentum. All right. So the other thing about it is that what I often find is that guys will say, well, I want to buy a bunch of properties, then I'm going to quit my job. Okay, but what is qualifying you for the properties you've purchased? It's your income. And if you quit and you try to do the same thing, you'll never get another loan. Because on residential loans, being self-employed is viewed negatively. It's very difficult to get a mortgage with a mortgage broker. Just recently, we bought a duplex, and we had a friend of ours tell us, hey, I'll get this note for you. I'll get the mortgage for you. I'm like, okay. So I sent him all of our stuff. We're self-employed. And he worked for like a month and a half on that thing and just barely got us qualified with like a $10,000 point and all this crazy stuff. And finally at the end, I'm like, no, I'm not doing this. And we took it to a commercial broker, our commercial banker, who approved us in less than 24 hours and gave us the note. Because he didn't care. The other guy was trying to fit us into the government box, and that box for residential notes, like they like your W-2 income. Okay, they don't like you being self-employed. They like, little debt, all those nice little parameters they put you in the box with. Try to get a residential loan when you're self-employed and have 4 or 5 LLCs and businesses income coming in from different places, a lot of mortgage brokers will just, their head will explode because they won't be able to put, it doesn't fit in the box, the computer thing they got to enter it into. Okay. So, but in the commercial side, being self-employed is seen as a positive, because how else are you going to manage the properties that they've loaned you on? If I'm giving you a $2 million loan on a property, I hope you manage it. And even if you're going to hire a manager, I hope you manage the manager. So it's considered, it's not a problem. Like you submit your personal financial statement, you show the property appraisals, and it's like, that's a good thing. It's not a problem. And so the goal that a lot of people that I talk to have is that, hey, I want to buy some loans, but buy some property that I can begin to either go part-time with. Maybe my wife can quit her job, we get cash flow from. Maybe I can do it full-time and I have the flexibility to travel and do things. That's fantastic. I love those goals. But you're not going to accomplish that getting residential loans. You're only going to get it through commercial loans. All right. So big deal then becomes down payment. Like, where do I get the down payment from? You showed me this $1 million property, 1.6 million. They're going to require 20% down. Where's that supposed to come from, Steve? I don't have any money. I believe me, I totally get it. So in one of the videos in Real Estate Cookies, I go into great depth about seller financing. Okay. And this is basically where the seller, where you're buying the property, the seller gives you the down payment. They finance the down payment for you. Okay. So you have a first note with the bank, second note with the seller. All right. In residential loans, buying residential house and getting a normal loan through a mortgage broker, it's very difficult to do seller financing. Like, it's frowned upon. It's rare. The seller doesn't understand it. The bank doesn't like it. Like, no one is happy when you try to stick that into it to get it. Okay. Because they're like, well, if you're the one supposed to afford it, and if you can't come up with the down payment, then we don't want someone else on the hook for it, and we think you're risky. All right. But on the commercial side, seller financing is common. Of the loans we do assisted living, that's our main thing. We've purchased these buildings. We purchased several assisted livings. Every single one of them, the seller held financing for us. Okay. In the resort deal, the seller was going to hold financing for us. So the way the loan worked out, we didn't need it in the end, but he was going to hold financing for us. Okay. It's common. So if it's a 20% down payment, you get to ask the seller to hold 10%. Now you only come up with 10%. All right. And so you can work things around. I'm not saying you're going to get a seller to hold, the bank's going to give you 80% and you're going to get the seller to hold 20, and the bank's going to approve that. That's very difficult to do. All right. But if you're looking at a 20% down payment and you can get a seller to hold 10% of it, let's say your down payment is, you're getting $1 million loan. Let's say your down payment is $200,000 and he carries $100,000. Now you got $100,000 to come up with. That's more manageable, especially you can go fill in your weaknesses, which we'll talk about. But seller financing is common on commercial loans. No one's frightened by it. No one thinks I've had people tell me in residential side, they go, well, that's illegal. You can't do that. It's not true. Like, you can totally do that. Seller financing is a common thing. All right. All right. Any questions? Alami, you have your hand up. What do you got, bud?
Yeah, I was just curious, based on the residential properties, like how many properties can you acquire not to be a risk, if that makes sense? Like,
How many of what? Residential properties you can acquire?
yes,
Okay. So
like what is the safe number like you can have, so like you don't, like you're not a risk out there to lenders.
on the residential side, if you're going to like a mortgage broker or a banker and you're trying to get a mortgage on a house, let's say a single family or duplexes, that's all going to be qualified on your income if you're going the residential route, which usually that allows people to get maybe their personal house, maybe one, maybe two more rentals. That's about where it caps off. Okay. However, but there's a way around that, and I'll share that in a minute here. I'll share the way around that, but that's usually where it ends up. It's about that. Matt, you had a question?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. So totally get the sort of shift in mindset between, residential, it's your income, commercial, it's the building, or it's the property itself. Is there like kind of prereqs or key things from a personal perspective that are still, if you're a lender, that are must-haves in terms of like how your personal finances are? I know you said they'll scrutinize it, but I'm just trying to think through what's a punch list that you'd want to make sure you've got your personal finances too.
Sure. That's a great question. They are when I say about good deals attract money, okay, you have to be a good deal as well. So meaning that you pay your bills, your good credit score. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it's got to be a good credit score. You got to have some liquidity, like some reserves in the bank. It doesn't have to be equal to the note, 50% of the note. It doesn't mean you just have to have some liquidity in there where they can see you're not spending every dollar you make. All right. And there's something they can go after in the case everything goes wrong. But again, they're looking at the building. If everything goes wrong, they're looking at the building to go after the building, hire a new manager, get that building back up to speed, and then sell it and make themselves whole. And then still come after you if there's anything left. But they're not expecting you to be the main person to get that out. That being said, good credit score, good job history. And the next piece on here is that their ability to like you. I mean, it goes so far. So in a residential side, they're putting your numbers into a computer. Like, they don't know you. They don't have to know you. They don't have to like you. Doesn't matter. On the commercial side, you're sitting down at a local bank across the desk from a mortgage banker. You got to shake their hand, look them in the eye, be able to explain your deal. And if they get I have good friends that are mortgage bankers, commercial bankers, and they'll tell me, I just got a bad feeling from the guy. I didn't like him. And they didn't lend to him. So you got to be able to sit across the table, look him in the eye, speak clearly. Oh, I get my son. I'm like, stop mumbling. Speak clearly. You don't understand in the real world. Like, how am I going to affect you? And present your deal. Because it's approved locally. It's relationship based. The other side, the residential side, is just computer based. It's pass or fail. On the commercial side, you can make deals work. So the long and short, I can get you there are some things out there that can give you like a very specific, like what you need, but I've got approved for things that I thought I would never get approved for, because they just looked and said, okay, you got good credit history, you have some experience in the industry, and it seems like a good deal. We like this industry, and I've got approved for things that I'm like, I don't know how I got approved for that. So, but you got to know how to talk a good game.
Makes sense. Thanks.
And present yourself. Yeah. That's a great question. Any other questions? I don't want to. Anybody else? Cool. So I'll share this yet. So the government regulatory approvals is what they're looking at. It's pass or fail based on set regulatory things, because basically they're getting money that they're going to then later sell, and the government's backing it. So the government sets the rules. So you pass or fail. The commercial loans are approved and handled locally. Okay. I'm going to tie this all together to make sense in a minute, but they're approved locally. So you're going to your local bank. I'm not talking about the local Chase or Wells Fargo branch in your neighborhood. I'm talking about a local bank to your area. Okay. Walnut Creek Savings and Loan. Man, I don't know, like Kenosha Bank. You want something local, and you're sitting down with a commercial banker in that local area. They're approving local things that they're approved on. A local bank in Ohio is not going to finance you in Florida. They're going to do Ohio deals because that's what they're familiar with. All right. The place in Florida was financed by a Florida bank. So that goes to the next one. Relationships generally don't matter in this thing because they're just putting you into a computer, pass or fail. On commercial loans, banking relationships matter a great deal. because they have to know you, like you, trust you. And this is how the world works. They'll literally say, hey, I know his dad. I know that family, good or bad, or either way for you, but good or bad. They're like, I know the family. I know this person. I know them. I know that industry. I know that property. I know where it's at. And so that's going to help you get, you know, get approved or not. Okay. So the piece of this that I think is really interesting, that really got us on the map, is this. This ties together both sides. Okay. Commercial loans, residential properties. Okay. I was getting commercial loans on single family homes. I was getting commercial loans on duplexes. All right. Say, well, how can you do that? That's a residential loan. That's a residential property and a commercial property. But you can't think of it that way. Okay. Here's why. If a builder, if I have I'm Steve the builder. Okay, and I'm gonna go build a subdivision, and I'm gonna build residential houses in that subdivision. And I go to the bank with my business plan, and I say, hey, I'm gonna build this subdivision out, and I'm gonna build 50 houses in here. Are they going to give me 50 residential loans to build that development out? They're not. What kind of loan are they going to give me? Anybody?
Commercial.
Hey, there we go. Commercial. They're going to give me a commercial loan to do it, even though I'm building what kind of property?
Residential.
A residential loan. I'm building a residential property, but I'm getting a commercial note. So how can we use this to our advantage? Okay. So if I say, banker, here's my business plan. Throughout Kenosha or throughout your area, there are a lot of, I call them cat pee houses. These are houses that are like, they need work and they stink. They're outdated. Like they need to come in and get rehab. They need to get redone. So there's a lot of these houses out here, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to buy them. I'm going to rehab them. And then I'm going to either rent them out or I'm going to sell them. I'm going to flip them. Okay. And so this is my business. My business model is that I'm going to buy houses that are undervalued, fix them up, and resell them or rent them. That's my business. It's Miller Properties LLC. All right. And Mr. Commercial Banker, I'd like you to help me accomplish this goal. Here's my business plan. Here's my contractors. Here's how I'm going to make all this work. If he approves that, I can get commercial loans to fund my business of having rental property. And whether I buy commercial property or I buy residential houses, it doesn't matter because that's my business. Okay. My business is doing this. All right. So if you talk to someone at a bank, they'll probably say, oh, you're buying a single family. That's 1 to 4 units is residential, over 4 units is commercial. That's the general talking point that you're going to get, but it's not true. If I'm doing the business of buying property for a business purpose, I can get a commercial loan on a residential property. Then what goes away? If I'm getting commercial loans, how many homes can I buy? What rule goes away?
The 10, what is it? 10.
The 10 rule,
loan,
right?
The loan limit. Yeah.
Yeah, the loan limit goes away then. At one point here in town, and again, I had 25 single family homes. They were all on commercial loans. None of them showed up on my personal credit. Pull my credit, not one house showed up. They were all under commercial loans, 25 single families. So we were in the business of having rental property. So I'd go find the property. I would get a loan on that, on the commercial side, go do it. And they said, and I asked him point blank, how many of these can I do? And he said, as long as the properties support it, you can do as many as you want. Okay. And we did. So but that's how we grew our business initially, is because that light switch got flipped in my brain of like, and I had all my friends who were trying to do the same thing in our real estate group. They were all over the country, and they were getting their mom to get a loan and then their brother-in-law to get a loan. And they were like all this crazy stuff to get a couple single families done. And we had 25 because we just knew the criteria of what got approved. And we were using commercial loans to buy residential properties. and we bypass all the regulations and rules that are out there to do it. And this is not isolated to like Wisconsin. I've done it in different states. The key is, and here's the key to this, is that it's the type of bank you go to. So if you walk into Wells Fargo, you walk into Chase, you walk into Fifth Third, all these national banks, they're not going to touch you. Like right now, I can't even get a loan at Chase. We're not big enough. Like we're just a small fish. Like they won't. Maybe it doesn't work. But the small local banks here, we got a bank up in Madison area. They have all of our loans, and they're fantastic. And this is the size they loan from like 500,000 to like 6 million. That's their loan sweet spot. So they'll make those loans all day long. They're looking. If you're a banker that does commercial loans, you are going to social gatherings, networking, coffees, Rotary clubs to meet people because they want to give loans out. They want to loan a commercial property to good people. So it isn't like you're trying to pull the money out of them. They want to give you the money. They just got to see a good deal. Good deals attract money. All right. So when you look at this chart here, on the commercial side, the income of the property qualifies. No limits on how many you can get. Being self-employed is okay. Seller financing is common. Approvals are handled locally. Bank relationships matter. Completely different ballgame. Okay.
Hey,
And
Steve.
so yes, go ahead, Fu.
Hey, quick question. So does commercial loan ask for your collateral?
Yes. So you're going to show personal financial statement. They're going to look at all the stuff you have. What can happen is if, let's say, they're going to ask for it, and you're going to have, so until you get to a certain point, you're going to have personal guarantees on these loans. So you do start an LLC, you start a company that you get the loan in. So, you'll have your LLC that you get the loan in, but it's still tied to you. It's still tied to you personally. You're still guaranteeing the note. All right. Now, if you get bigger, where you're doing it, where you get a group of investors together, and you can do it without personal guarantees. There are some ways to get around that, but your collateral and stuff is personally guaranteeing the notes until you get really far down the line. Yeah. What's interesting though is that banks will take a personal guarantee, and then another bank will give you a note and they'll take a personal guarantee, and then another one will do it. But they don't ask questions of like, how many personal guarantees have you actually taken? They don't really ask that question, which is kind of odd in a lot of ways. They just don't. So
Steve, if you go that LLC route, that personal guarantee, that's the limit on your personal financial obligation.
So the reason, LLC is more of a liability than a tax strategy. I mean, there is some tax advantages to it, but if you start an LLC, if you have, let's say you have 5 rental properties, okay? And the conventional wisdom will tell you to put each individual property in this different LLC, because if someone slips and falls and they get hurt, they can only sue you for what's owned in that particular LLC. All right. But the kicker is, unless that LLC has its own bank account, file its own tax return, and does everything, like there's not sharing of accounts, you're blowing your liability out the water. It's not going to really work. So what I've done is I divided up by class. So all the rental property goes in one LLC, and I buy an umbrella insurance policy over the whole thing. Mm-hmm. So I can do one tax return, I have one bank account, and I might have 10 properties in there. But like in Wisconsin, the highest liability anyone's ever got on a rental property suit is like $3 million, and I have a $10 million umbrella policy. So I have it like over all of it, tuck it all in there, and then for the hotel we have its own. For the assisted living we have its own, but we combine it by class is what we do. Because I can't have 15 bank accounts out there. So
So it's safe to have different LLC.
Say it again.
I said so it's safe to have multiple LLCs, right?
Yeah, it's you're gonna get multiple LLCs down the road, but you don't think that you have to start a new LLC for every single type of every property you get. That's some people disagree with me. That's fine. I just think practicality. Every LLC you have to file. You have to have its own bank account. You have to file your own tax return. It gets very expensive, and it gets very hard to actually. If you don't do it right, you lose your liability anyways. So we've gone the umbrella route with it, and it's. I mean, knock on wood, it's been fine so far. But yeah, I don't know on that end. I mean, it could be a lot of different ways. So what I would say, if you want to dive deeper into this, is number one is to figure out your goal of why you want to do it. If maybe you're younger like Jaden and you say like, hey man, this is what I'm going to get my college degree and then I'm going to go start investing in stuff. You might have a totally different game plan and goals than what, I might have, or, someone else might have that's older and saying, I have an income, I have a job, I need to supplement it. I want a retirement. Because I mean, I looked up stats today, like a lot of people, when they look at their main retirement source is their personal house. And they're like, how do I build this retirement vehicle up to where it needs to be? I'm in my 40s, I'm in my 50s, and I don't have enough money in there. How am I going to do this? Well, one or two commercial deals done correctly can fund that retirement account in a hurry. Because you're using the power of leverage. So if I can buy a $3 million property, okay, and I allow that $3 million property and I own it for 10 years and it appreciates, okay, let's say it appreciates 4% a year or whatever it might appreciate. I mean, would you rather have $3 million appreciating at that amount or have 300,000 going up? You'd rather have the 3 million that's going to appreciate, plus you're paying it down. Now you can drop a big chunk into your retirement when you're ready to exit the property. So it takes like one or two as opposed to a lot of small ones. So I'm jumping around now a little bit everywhere. So let me give you what the plan would be. If we'll host another one of these, and what I'd like to do is jump into more of this on the right side, this commercial and how this works. This is debt service coverage ratio. So most commercial properties is 120 to 130. And the way you find that out is net operating income divided by annual debt service. And so you just have to understand a few terms. You have to understand NOI. What is NOI? That's the net operating income. And then you can work backwards to it. So what I'd like to do in the next one is understand, okay, how does this work? Is to walk through this piece of it here, is some of the terms, net operating income, debt service ratio, how does it break down? How do you value the property? Because the way I got to this is that the NOI is 150,000, and in the Midwest, most of the cap rates are about 8 to 9%. Well, you divide that and you get the value. You get the value of the property. But that's something we can go into, all right, on that end. And then we'll just work through the different pieces of it on the different properties. Okay. And in the meantime, if we got other questions, we can dive into that as well. Okay. So a little piece of homework for you guys, and we can ask more questions too. It's not a problem. But there is an account. There's a website out there called LoopNet.com. I don't know if you've been out there or not, but if you go to LoopNet, actually I can probably do it right now since I'm sharing the screen. Let's see here. I don't think I can. So if you go to LoopNet.com, LoopNet is a commercial listing thing. It's you can get a free account. You don't have to pay anything. And you would go to LoopNet, you would click for sale, and then you would do multifamily is where I would probably tell you to start. And then you'd filter the results, so find in your state. And you'll see a list of properties that are going to come up that will be potential. So if I go to loopnet.com, you can see it here. All right. Can you all see that? So, okay. So then I'll scroll over here. I'll go multifamily and I'll type in Wisconsin. All right. So now it's going to bring up, all these different properties within Wisconsin that now, we can look at. So the purpose of this is I'm not telling you to go out and buy something on here. I'm saying what we can do here is look at this to begin sourcing how these will work. And what I'll do is we'll pull up a property from here and just walk through it, of what to look for, how to look at it. Like, for example, this one here this is a crazy property, but it's 75 units, $8 million. Okay, this is not where we start at all. But this is the type of stuff that's on there. It tells you all about it. It tells you the price per square foot, the cap rate of it. This one does not give you an NOI, but we can figure it out. But the cool thing about this, I would do this, I'm a little bit of a nerd, but when I go on vacation, my favorite thing to do is to reach out to these guys and ask for financials. And so with the financials, then I will just walk through the financials, on vacation, so I can look at it like, oh, look at this property. And you just learn so much every single time. And they'll send you the financials to the properties. And you send a little disclosure, they'll ship them off to you. They want to sell it. So I'll look at all different stuff just to see, what is out there, that would be, a possibility. So here's this is a 10-unit building, $879,000. It doesn't look very attractive. But, they have information out there, and it's the way we begin breaking down on how these things work. So this is one piece of it. The other piece that's in here is just how you work it, is that if you hit filters and I go down here, this is all multifamily, but let's say I wanted to look at, hospitality, okay, which would be like hotels. So now I look in here and I'll have some different options in here because of that. This is where I love to go, and I look at stuff as I go through here all the time because you learn. You can look up small businesses, you can find laundromats, you can find anything you want to think of, car washes, anything you want to think of will be in there, and you can request financials, and you can just comb through them to figure out how these things work, and just to practice, quite honestly. So your homework is to go create a free account on LoopNet, pull up a few properties, look at them. Second thing, your local multiple listing service, whatever that might be. Local, here it's Bear Realty is what I use, but wherever you're at. And I begin looking up duplexes and small multi-unit investments. So it might 2-unit, 3-unit, those types of things. And last but not least, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Because I only have a few people on there, and it'd be nice to have a few more. So, anyways, so that's what I have for you tonight. Any questions on what we covered today or what we're looking at on this whole thing? Any piece that was confusing?
You may cover it, Steve, on the next session, but cap rate, is that just generally, return on investment for that given property, or financial metric, essentially higher the better in terms of income generating potential?
Not necessarily. So the real cap rate is basically the return, the return on the building, assuming there's no debt.
Okay.
So if it's a 10% cap rate, meaning that it's going to make a 10% return. All right. 9, 8, 7, all the way down. All right. However, it kind of goes the opposite direction, because the lower the cap rate, the higher the price. You would think that if it's a 10% return, it's going to be a higher price, but it's the opposite, because what they do is if it's a 6% cap rate, taking the NOI, you're dividing by the 6%, it's going to give you the value. But it's saying that, well, because this is not a risky investment, the price is higher. The reason it's only making 6% return is because maybe it appreciates more. You got a solid tenant, these different things. If you see a 10 or 11% cap rate, that's because it's probably in a rough section of town and they're trying to give it away. So they keep lowering the price to get someone to buy it. So as the market heats up, the cap rates go down. San Francisco, your cap rates are 4 and 5%. I don't know how people buy property there. I've never understood it. As you get to the Midwest, you'll find 8, 9, 10%. Ohio's got kind of the same thing going on. If you get to really, hot area, the cap rate will still creep down some. But it's what so let's say the NOI. I hope I don't screw these numbers up doing them on the fly, but the NOI is $100,000. All right. A 10% cap rate would mean you're going to pay $1 million for the property. All right. So if I pay $1 million cash for the property, it's going to make $100,000 a year. That's a 10% return. All right. But if it makes $90,000 a year, that means it's a 9% cap rate. 80,000 is 8% and go down there. Okay. So it's still producing the same amount, but it's costing you more. So why would you pay more for it? Well, it's because where it's at, it's where the condition of the property, where it's located, the strength of the renter, it's kind of like in the stock market, the people buy different, investment vehicles that have a really low return, 3 or 4%. Well, why would you put your money in a 3 or 4% return or 2% return? What's the trade-off? Why do people do it? Because there's little to no risk in those things. All right. But you put your money in other things, you have a potential for higher return, there's a higher risk. Mm-hmm. So it's an inverse relationship and how you're thinking about it right, but the way the scale works is reverse.
Makes sense.
So, yeah, but that's a key part of looking at the gross income, then the expenses, getting to the NOI, and then what to do with the NOI, the net operating income. So all the income minus all the expenses, not the mortgage, because the mortgage is different for everybody. What I'm going to pay for a mortgage, what you're going to get from a mortgage are two separate things. So that doesn't factor into the value of the property. So it's only the income minus the fixed expenses and variable expenses gives you your net operating income. You use that number to figure out the value of the property, and that's how they set the value. How you finance it is up to you. That doesn't determine the value of it. But that's what we'll play with. We'll just take a property and go down through it, figure out the NOI, and then from there extrapolate what the value of it would be, and then your financing options because of that. Okay, because if you buy a 10% something in a 10% cap rate, you can have more financing options. You can borrow more debt against it. But if you buy something at a 5 or 6% cap rate where there's little or no risk, you can't borrow as much against it because there's not enough margin there. You got me going all over the place, but that's what we'll walk through.
Steve, two questions. So, and you'll probably catch this the next time around too, but just with that thought, what is kind of like your targeted margin, if you will? So you've got your NOI, but then you have your debt service. Like, is there a certain spread you're looking for, a cushion? You don't want to be too leveraged, and we can talk through that obviously. And then number two, with the commercial lending, how much do they look at, like the lease terms that may be existing? If you're buying a property that has maybe existing lease terms in place, if it's longer, do they take that in consideration, or is that more on your end evaluating the deal?
I think both. To answer your second question first, both sides evaluate that. Like if I'm going to go write the offer to buy the place and they have a tenant in there, let's say I'm buying it and the tenant has a 10-year lease and they're only 3 years into the 10-year lease, and that lease is going to transfer over to me. Well, that's really valuable, so that's going to probably increase what I'm willing to pay a little bit more. But if it's a 10-year lease and they're at year 8 of it, well, then you're like, well, that's not that valuable. But yeah, it's occupied for 2 years, but then what? What am I going to do? The bank looks at that kind of the same way. They're looking at, okay, how valuable is this tenant? And they'll have their sense too of what the market's out there like, if you can get another tenant right away, or also like if it's a, let's say it's like a warehouse situation, like it's a single tenant situation, that becomes a little more difficult because if that tenant leaves, now it's completely vacant, and those don't fill up quite as quick. But when they do fill up, then you have them for a long term. So that plays into, as opposed if it's like a 5-unit strip mall and you got different leases coming and people coming and going, and has a good history to the property, because they'll look at 3 years of the property, and then they'll extrapolate what it's at. Set your first question about the margin. The bank has that margin that they built in there to qualify for the note, so they're going to give you that to you. And then I'm looking at, okay, if I can meet the bank's qualification, that's a good thing for me. But then I want to look at what's the upside, because all these properties I'm not going to hold forever. So you're looking at the upside of it to think, okay, what can I do? Can I raise the rents? Can I remodel these units and get more rent for them? Are there obvious things that are really bad about the property that I could fix up and get an upside to it? And then that kind of plays into like what I'm willing to, how much margin I think I need. That's where your goals really come into this, to set that margin. Because if, let's say, you have a really good income, you and your wife are doing happy, you're happy and you have a good income, you just want to buy something on the side that's going to supplement, that you don't want to be bothered much by it. Maybe you're going to hire a manager to run it. Well, you're going to keep, maybe your margin is pretty low at that point, because you're going for, I don't want to be bothered, I want a safe investment, so you're not going to get as much. But if you're going into it like, hey, I'm going to really put some sweat into this thing, then you're looking at something that has a potential of a really big margin, because I'm going to be active in it. It's a long answer, but
Yeah,
does that
no,
make
that's
sense?
so also the trade-off is immediate cash flow versus future appreciation. There's some balance to that too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Likes to see that immediate cash flow, and then your way you can sell what your exit strategy is and how you're going to increase everything along the way. And again, that's where, when you're sitting across from someone explaining your deal, you can sell that story and get them on board for it, as opposed to what most everyone's used to is on the residential side, you're handing them your tax returns and a couple things, they're spitting out a yes or no. It's not like that. Like, you got to be able to tell your story to it. All right. Well,
so I was going to ask a very quick question. So
go ahead.
are there any cons to owning a commercial property?
Any
Is there
cons owning the commercial properties?
Yeah, like something you should be watched for. Does
Yeah,
that make sense?
I mean,
Yeah.
there definitely is. I mean, you're taking out, if you are going to get a loan, that's that size, you got to make sure you will really like the property you're buying. I tell everybody, anytime you purchase a property, you're marrying that property. Like, you are married to the property. You're not just going to walk away easily from it. I mean, so whatever you're buying, you got to make sure you love it, and that you like doing it, and that you're willing to, you're proud of it, and you have a good plan for it, and you're committed to it, because things do go wrong all the time. There's always risk to it. Things go wrong, so you got to have your plan. But I think the risk of it is that markets can change, rent values can change, all those interest rates can change. A lot of times the commercial loans will be on like a 3-year term, and then the interest rate goes up. Well, then that kills your cash flow too. If you're not prepared for that, with the fluctuation of the market, that can hurt. There's a lot of variables to it. You're never going to get all of those taken care of. There's always, we're trying to mitigate as much risk as possible, but you are still taking a risk no matter what you purchase. There's going to be risk. But yeah, that's where you have to think about, like, what am I willing to do to make this work if it comes down to it. We've had ones that we've done that have gone so smooth, I'd be like, I could do 10 of these. And then we've had ones where I'm like, I never, ever want to look at a property again. because you're like we had a property in Illinois, and it never made $1 from the moment we bought it, because as soon as we got it, the local municipality raised the taxes to like such an unimaginable amount that we were fighting for on it for years, and we never could make it down. We were feeding that animal for like 10 years. And when we sold it, we wrote a check. Each of us had to write a check for like $25,000 when we sold the property. After like 10 years of owning it, it was the worst experience ever. But it was probably one of the best experiences ever, because I learned I took a real appreciation for not just willy-nilly going into anything out there I can qualify for. Because, one good property can set your whole family up, and one bad property can really set you back. So you do have to go into this with caution. That's why I think a lot of people will just not do it, because they don't want to. They'll just say, I'm risk averse. I'm not going to do it. And if that's the case, there are investment vehicles out there that you can be involved in real estate without that risk. And we can talk about those too. But if you're going to go at it, you're going to have to face, these possible things could go wrong. What's my plan if they do go wrong? And I typically will tell people, we've had this conversation of like, start with a duplex. I tell everyone, just start with a duplex. Buy a duplex somewhere, rent it out, and see if you like the business. You may absolutely hate it. So that's why I tell everyone kind of to start. That's not for everybody. I mean, some people have started, they say, well, I don't want any work at all. Well, they've bought a property that has a triple net lease, and being that there's no work at all to be done. And so there's different options, but we'll go through that. So. All right. Well, hey, most of you have my number. Give me a call, text me if you have any questions. If there's something you want us to cover, I'll send out the dates for the next time. And I hopefully this time works. I figured everyone have their kids to bed and evening's quiet by this time, that we can do it and get it recorded. So, all right. If there's no other questions, we will see you guys on the other side. All right.
Thanks for
All
this,
right,
Steve.
thanks,
This was
Steve.
real
Yeah,
helpful.
good talking to everybody.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
Talk
Looking
soon.
forward to the next one. Thanks all.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Have a good one, guys.
I
Bye.
see.
Yeah. See you, Lami.
Artlist.io